What was that? I'm the scat man. I'm the scat man, huh?
All right. Hello, everybody. We are the Palladian Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
And I am Riley.
Welcome to our episode 2 of our podcast. So I don't know if you guys noticed or been looking at Twitter or anything like that recently.
I haven't.
I know Nathan doesn't, Riley somewhat, but the thing going on now is Mr. Peanut died.
Mr. Peanut is kill. Where were you when Mr. Peanut was kill?
Right.
Sorry for bad English.
Yeah. I know there's like a video or whatever where he dies, and I think there was like rumors they were going to play like a Super Bowl commercial of his funeral or something like that.
So this is like the official company doing these ads, these marketing things.
It's Planters, which I think...
Oh, that peanut. Okay.
Yeah, the Planters, Mr. Peanut. And I think the Twitter page is now called The Estate of Mr. Peanut. Like that's their official Twitter profile.
Kind of great.
It's pretty funny.
I feel like it's just a marketing ploy. Like
Right,
you can't kill off
no.
like your mascot unless you're utterly rebranding.
It's viral marketing. So
is he going to come back from the dead like he's Superman or something?
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, there was like that one Doritos Super Bowl commercial where there's the guy like in the coffin watching football, and it was full of Doritos, and like he got too excited and knocked the coffin over. All the Doritos spilled out, and he had to get up. And one of his buddies was like, "Oh, it's a miracle," something like that. So they might pull off something like that.
Or he just bequeaths his estate to his nephew.
Yeah. Well, because like. See,
Mr.
I would
Cashew the Third.
I thought he would have gotten knocked off by that nutcracker a number of years ago. There was some attempts on his life over the Christmas holidays.
See, he was more concerned with walnuts, though. That's like what you use nutcrackers for.
Or if you ever watch like the claymation Klops show from like the 90s, I think on Mad TV, where he like goes postal in his factory with a nutcracker, and the cops have to take him down.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like a parody of TV show Cops, but I guess all that by introduction.
What are we introducing with that? How does that?
We are terrible at transition.
Segue.
Yeah. Segue.
A non-segue segue.
A non-segue.
To the topic of discussion for today.
Which is video games, or as we like to call them, Vidya.
Or Vidja. Or videogrames. You will hear any of those terms used.
Or interactive media.
Yes.
If we're being pretentious.
If we're being pretentious. Which
Vidya. Is it Vidya even art?
Is it? That is the question
is
today
it though?
now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yes.
Yes, it is art.
But we are going to offer somewhat of a defense to our position, because I know that there's a lot of people out there who don't know about the value that video games have as an artistic medium.
Not only why it qualifies as an art medium, but also what unique it brings to the table and why it should be respected uniquely as an art form.
Because the only arguments I've ever heard, like why video games is art, tend to be more circular by people who are fans of video games. Not that they're wrong, but people are like, video games are art. Like they just make that statement like it's self-evident, but then don't dive into it much deeper than that. So I guess that's kind of where we're looking to contribute to the conversation. So a good way to tell whether or not something is or is not a thing is by observing or by looking up that thing's definition. So in this case, art is a medium that communicates an idea, or the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. And so, I mean, it listed art and painting and sculpture as like the
As examples.
right, as like the prototypical examples. But you could also throw in there photography, to a certain extent, like actual like artful photography. Or well, films obviously is another
Music.
one. Music. Because they all share in common the property of like being a medium that communicates an idea, or like, you know, emotions, experiences and stuff, things that are you know, very fundamental to the human experience. But
So let's unpack why exactly that video games fit this criteria.
yeah.
So let's look back at this definition that we've provided here.
I guess before we get into that, where did we pull this definition from for reference?
The Googles.
The Googles.
You Googled it the other
like
day.
dictionary.com, I think.
I'm sure it was the Webster Dictionary.
Webster Dictionary.
And Webster's always right.
Yeah. So we're not just coming
Actually, they're generally fairly on the money with things that they define. So
Okay. It's not like we pulled it from Wikipedia or something. We'd get a real talking to from our professors.
if we still
you
had professors, those of us who still have professors.
I still have professors, but
had
none
a-
of them are concerned about my writing.
I had a professor who was like encouraging us to use Wikipedia, but then like as a secondary source, obviously. But anyway,
Anyway.
As a launching point into other.
tangent.
Anyway.
So yeah, looking back at our definition of art to see if video games fit it.
So, human skill, human creative skill.
Yeah.
Does video game do this?
Yes.
And I would argue that the answer is yes, but how?
Well,
Well, for one thing, it does depend on the game. And also,
is true.
honestly,
In-
in
in-
art
let's-
in
let's-
general, it
yeah.
depends. It varies in quality, right?
yeah.
Because there are some video games that are, yes, creatively bankrupt. But then there's
Call of Duty.
right. James
on
took a
who
little
you-
bit of offense at
Well,
that, but
slightly.
in general, to make a good video game, you need to have some creative humans.
At least impressive visuals. That is a component that most any successful video game will have.
I mean,
Not necessarily like the most fancy AAA 3D stuff, but it has to have a visual appeal to it. Otherwise, a visual medium with which you interact is not going to sell well.
Well, even to make a video game in the first place, you have to have a certain minimum degree of creative skills and technical knowledge to be able to put a video game together in the first place.
So let's talk about that. Like, because I don't think a lot of people know about the specific mechanical, like, technical ability that's necessary to put together a video game.
because if it were easy, everyone would be making them.
Suppose you'd probably know the most on the subject because you computer science
Because
boy.
I am a computer science boy. There's
What-
lots of different things about video games throughout the ages that have cool, interesting technical bits about them. So way back in the days of like 8-bit art and, you know, kind of 2D based art, what they had was they didn't have 3D models. So what they had was like 2D images that they used, and they had like a whole set of them for like a particular character. And so when they would walk up, they would have a literally a different image for like when you put the left foot forward and the right foot forward and then back to center. And the same thing with like virtually every direction. And those are what's called sprites. And you would have a sprite sheet, which contains all of the different poses that a character could possibly be in while they're walking around.
Which sort of
and
directly
then it
borrows-
like puts them together really fast, like a flip book, to give you the effect of it looking like it's moving.
Right.
So
they inherited from like, you know, walk cycles and movement cycles from like hand-drawn animation, which was already a pretty
a long
established
pre-existent art.
art form. Yeah, at that point.
All of this with limited pixels, with limited colors, with limited space on the screen. So there was a whole lot of creativity just to make it work at all. It is kind of impressive that any of them look like anything. Mm-hmm. You know,
Not to mention the limited computation power of old computers and the very old gaming systems. They had a really, really crazy limited amounts of computing power to work with.
Get more than
It's
8 sprites on
it's
screen.
really
Everything starts
amazing.
to flicker.
Yeah, it's amazing what they did just to get these games to like perform smoothly.
And a lot of these are still held as like the pinnacle of their genre, you know? Mm-hmm. They're because not only they made the most out of their limited resources, the way they put their levels together and their worlds together with reusing as many assets as possible while keeping it looking unique and fresh when it's pretty ingenious sometimes.
And principles of video game design have carried through even to modern day games. And even, well, like the original style, like or the 2D style of gaming is iconic enough where people still make it, like where it's still maintained as its own.
Yeah,
genre
even in the current year, people are still making 2D pixelated games because
Most of them are indie developers because AAA gaming spaces only want to make open world shooty games, but
and also they just open world shooting games are very expensive and require a lot of manpower. So
that too.
But
That's
say
a lot
you
of-
have something like Undertale where it was literally one dude working for how long was it?
Couple of years.
Couple of years.
So it's got quite like 5 years.
But
Something.
poured a lot of like visual art, storytelling, and music into it.
Oh, music, man.
I intend to play that game at some point. But at any rate, so
talk
so
about
yeah,
that one
human
later.
creative skill I think we've pretty well established is definitely like part and parcel to video games. A very essential component of them. So imagination, I think we've sort of touched on that a bit. Obviously,
Yeah.
it takes a great degree of imagination and creative vision to be able to put a video game together.
Particularly when you're writing a story, right? It's imagination is necessary for writing a story at all. And so any video game that has a story needs to have some level of imagination in it.
Right. So yeah, and then like, so like some games where you like, especially games where there's like a lot of world building just through simple interaction with it. You had like somebody had to go through and like map out that world and create it for people to discover.
And there was an entire team of people just building all the assets, putting all the little details, writing all the little lines of dialogue for all the little side characters.
And then sometimes you have like special set pieces that push the like technical boundaries, I guess, of at the time. Like say for there's one video we were watching on like the science of how like if your character looks like he's running towards the screen and it's like the ground is moving beneath him.
Oh yeah, the like scrolling effect in like Sega Genesis or like Super Nintendo. Yeah.
Or in like the old days of film or something, or I think still in like claymation animation sometimes
sure.
they'll do this, where it's literally a cylinder with like the ground stuff on it, and it has sort of a similar effect
Yeah.
in video games, but then like that's actually like individual
Layers that are just cycled through or whatever.
So it's,
I don't
it's
know.
pretty cool stuff. So I guess our third component,
expresses some means of beauty or emotional power.
yeah,
That's the other core element of this definition that we're working from. So
Which, again, not all games are going to have it. They're going to have it to varying degrees. But there is certainly potential there, right?
right. I think each game has like its own like balance of these three components, and I think when you listen or like watch game review videos, usually they will, when they're evaluating video games, the criteria will follow like a similar pattern to what we've laid out here.
Kind of, yeah.
So for emotional power, then, I guess what are some, for example, I mean, we're going to dive into some of our favorite video games.
I think this is a perfect opportunity to do just that.
Well,
sure.
yeah.
So
So I guess if you, next part of our discussion, then if you could recommend a game to someone who is unfamiliar with games, what would you pick and why?
shall we start with Nathan?
Yeah, I'll start with Nathan.
Well, my choice for this question was Portal. The reason being,
Tell us a little bit about Portal.
So Portal is a game for PC and some consoles, orange box or whatever. Made by Valve, the people who are behind the gaming storefront Steam. It is a first-person puzzle platformer adventure-ish game in which you play as a silent protagonist.
Chell, I think.
Chell is her name, but it's
Yeah.
like unimportant, really.
Yeah, because it's never mentioned.
The point is, you're put in the shoes of this character who wakes up in a test facility of something. Not sure what they're testing until you progress through the game. And eventually you get your hands on a portal gun. You get to shoot an orange portal and a blue portal. You walk through one, you come out the other, and that's pretty much it. You put boxes on buttons to open doors using a portal gun. And it gets progressively more complex, progressively more, interesting in their outside the box thinking of the puzzle solving. And the further into the game you go, the more you realize that the pure sanitized white exterior of this test facility starts to slowly chip away. And you see a little bit behind the scenes of what might actually be going on at this facility.
The cake is a lie.
Shut up! That's a spoiler. But
This is a spoilerful podcast.
Yeah.
We do spoilers here.
It's kind of hard to dive into like the full
the nitty gritty of things.
without spoiling. The
But
cake is a lie. I guess people have probably heard that by now.
But yeah, the one of the reasons I like this is the way it tells its story. Isn't much story. Not only is the gameplay fun, but like the story that there is a natural kind of emergent storytelling that as the player plays through the game, they naturally stumble across it. It isn't told to you in a text dump or a cutscene. It happens directly to the player. Each realization isn't shown to you as an expression on your character's face. It's your own expression on your own face because it's happening directly to you. That is one of the more powerful tools that video games have as a medium, I feel.
You have GLaDOS, the like sort of
The narrator character.
who is like guiding you through the facility, and you eventually come to find out that it's like this computer AI that is like manipulating you and testing you, and so when it's done with you, you have to try to escape it, and that's just kind of.
And they do some neat stuff, like the sequence with the companion cube. You actually, at the end, you kind of feel like it's your friend. The only friend you've ever had is this cube, right? So
the normal cube with a heart on it.
Yeah, just a normal cube. You've been putting tons of these on buttons the entire game. But this one, because they tell you it's your friend and you keep it for the whole level, they built that trust up, then they make you incinerate it. And you're like, no, I don't want to incinerate my friend, but you have to to continue. It's really this kind of neat way of telling a story and giving you an idea of a character, right? The other reasons I would recommend it as a starting point is it's on sale like more than 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And it'll run on pretty much any decent computer.
Yeah. Very accessible.
So very accessible. It's also short. If you're daunted by like a
first one's
30-hour game or more, 100-hour game,
Yeah.
you could beat this in 10 hours if you suck at it. You know? So yeah, that's my pick. It's Portal.
Cool. I guess Riley.
My pick for something I would recognize as a game that exemplifies artistic value is Skyrim. So Skyrim is an open world RPG. So it's you can be one of the many races in this universe of the Elder Scrolls. That's the game series it's a part of. It's very customizable. You know, you get to become something that fits into the history of this universe, and you can envelop yourself kind of immersively into it. The way in which you interact with the world is entirely up to your discretion. There's many different options that you can use in terms of combat, and the world is gigantic, so you can spend hundreds of hours exploring this place. The reason that I really like it, though, is the spectacular visuals and the soundtrack in tandem make one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had playing video games, and I've played a lot of video games. So when you're like the menu for accessing your character's skills is like this starlit sky with the northern lights in the background, and it's just this breathtaking view, and you can get to that like anytime you want. And so it's just like this almost heavenly thing that you can go to, and it's, I mean, granted the game is a little old nowadays.
Yeah.
It's starting to show its age, but at the time it was spectacular.
It was really cutting edge.
And it has one of the best soundtracks of any game I've ever played. And it's the tandem of those two things, the sounds, the music, and the visuals that make it such a cool experience for me.
Cool.
Furthermore, you have a lot of choice over how things pan out. You aren't really shoehorned into making decisions that the developers want you to make. You're given like, some degree of autonomy over how the situation turns out with the events that are going on in the world.
And your decisions have a direct impact. Like, I mean, even though you're not like shoehorned into it, how things play out is like determined by your actions.
That is generally how doing actions.
Right, but I
works.
mean, like, even like individual conversations you have with people, not just things you do.
Things
in-game.
if you say something a little bit different way, it will cause a different outcome than if you said something a little bit different. So,
And you can build up like different skills, I guess, that'll help you
yeah.
in different areas of the game.
Which is another thing very unique to video games. They really kind of allow you to, when the game provides the option, it can allow the player to make choices, right? Because they're an active medium. They're not passive. You're not watching it happen. You're not watching it happen to somebody else. It's happening to you. You make the choices. You do the adventuring.
And that's
And it
really
feels
what
even more like you when you can customize your character so much.
that's really what sets video games apart from like movies or books, or, well, very different from books. But I mean, like movies, TV, etc. Is that like that interactivity, where it's more like directly tangible experience communicated, like almost like I would say more directly to you than a TV show or a movie, because instead of just being a passive observer, you are a participant almost in the story that's or in the game as it's unfolding in front of you. So I guess if I were to recommend a game to somebody unfamiliar with games, which, let's be honest, for the most part, I kind of am this person unfamiliar to games. Over the course
This is a game that we have recommended to him.
Right. This was a game recommended to me, which really opened, I guess, widened my horizons quite a bit with the types of games I like to play now. So the game is Legends of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. It's a pretty well-known game. It's obviously in the Legends of Zelda series, where it still follows like the formula where this character Link, you wake up, there's a princess in a castle with Ganon, the evil wizard creature thing, that you need to build up skills, collect the items, and free her and defeat Ganon. Each game kind of takes on a different permutation of this. Breath of the Wild, you wake up in this place called the Shrine of Resurrection, where you find out you've been sleeping for 100 years, and Link or Zelda, because you were defeated last time you fought Ganon, but Zelda is still in the castle after all this time, holding off Ganon, but sort of imprisoned, and you have to make your way across Hyrule through this giant open world full of all sorts of different, cultures, creatures, monsters, shrines, which are basically puzzle areas where you get some sort of reward. And you also, where you have to use like the physics and these different things you get on your device called the Sheikah Slate, called the runes, where you have like this bomb, a magnet, what are some of the freezing, where you can make like pillars in ice, stuff like that. These different tools you have at your disposal that you can upgrade through the course of the game to solve puzzles and progress through the world. And also like beating shrines, which are basically mini dungeons, puzzles.
Kinda.
Sorta.
Not really.
Sort
Like
of.
a room in a dungeon, traditionally speaking.
Yeah. But a lot of them. I think there's like, what, 200, something like that?
Like
The map
120.
is massive. I guess the main reasons why I enjoy Breath of the Wild so much is just like the sheer depth and detail contained in the world that you can walk around and discover. All the weapons, all the like the creatures you can fight, the accessible but somewhat challenging combat, inventory management, cooking, Koroks, yeah, different little guys you can find that will give you like a little seed so you can upgrade your inventory.
And there's
things
like
that.
900 of those guys all over the place.
All over the place. And like there's like the different races, like you have the Zora, which are like the fish people. You have the Rito, which are these bird people. The Gorons, which live on Death Mountain.
They are round people.
They are the rock people.
They're rock people, and like so on. And then you have the people in Hyrule, and like these different cultures that kind of intermix. Each has like their own like individual art style, which to me kind of reminds me a lot of what I like about Lord of the Rings, which we're definitely going to get to later. But each, like the character design, the art design, each one has like its distinctive motifs and like themes in their architecture and like decorations and stuff I find really fascinating. So yeah, fun and engaging, immersive, very exploratory, and then depth of detail I really appreciate about that.
Not only exploratory, but it actively incentivizes you to explore things.
That's like the entire point. It's why it's called Breath of the Wild. The Wild is the entire game.
And the thing about the game is you can go straight to Ganon and fight him if you want to.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea. Odds are you're going to get stomped into the ground. But as you like, you don't, it's open world, and there's not, once you get past like kind of the opening area where it kind of teaches you how to play the game, the basics, you're basically like just told like, all right, get out there and free the princess, discover all the things. It's very open world game. So, but you're not required to do everything in the game, but the more you do in the game, it definitely incentivizes you to explore and do more of the world, because you gain more skills, you gain better weapons, you gain better armor,
Hearts and stamina,
all sorts of things that help you get better at the game. And so overall I find it's one of my favorite games, having played a lot of it. It's very, you got to watch out though. It's like a huge time sink. I mean, a lot of these games are. I'm sure Skyrim is very similar.
Skyrim is you could put 1,000 hours into it if you wanted to,
without trying very hard.
which is why I decided I would recommend a shorter game.
Yeah, Portal.
I don't think that we were so much recommending games as explaining why we think such and such a game is a particular paragon of the artistic capacity of the medium.
A certain aspect of it, anyway.
Yeah. Right. So I guess overall, our main takeaway that we want to share with you guys today is art in general is at its best when it communicates the transcendentals, like we talked about last week. So truth, goodness, beauty, and unity. And so I think video games are particularly capable of this when properly applied. And the best video games, just like any other art, have like these to a very full extent.
And not only that, they can uniquely reach out and attempt to reach out directly to the player and draw you as a player to draw the goodness, truth, and beauty out of you in a way, you know? Or they can. Or you could just, blow everybody up and chop the chickens.
Like James.
I didn't chop. Well, okay, I chopped the chickens once.
Just to see what would happen.
Yeah.
Because you have to.
Yeah. I did like, that's kind of a spoiler, but whatever. I walked around a village and collected 10 chickens for this guy.
12.
Was it 12?
It was 12.
It was too many.
10. It was 10. You're right.
It was 10 chickens. I went and collected them all for this guy because he was worried about his poor little chickens. Like, his house is a chicken coop. Bit of a chicken weirdo. But
his wife left him because he's so obsessed with chicken.
yeah, the little things like that are just hilarious to me. And just, yeah, the game rewards you for like interacting with like the different NPCs and so forth. But I digress. Yeah, so
Transcendentals.
I guess one thing, I don't know if we really touched on this before, what a medium is.
They're people who talk to dead
Not-
spirits.
no.
Not that kind of medium.
Not that.
We don't like those kinds of medium.
So essentially, a communication boy over here, there's this model that people have used to express kind of what communication is. I believe it's the transition model of communication, and it's pretty like fundamental basic stuff. But yeah, transmission model of communication. So basically, you have your sender and receiver, and then you have the channel or the medium, I guess in this case, which is like
They're kind of interchangeable terms.
interchangeable. Yeah. So that's what we mean by medium. So like you have the idea which starts in your mind. You transfer it onto a medium,
Like
which
a podcast.
You package it and
like a
transfer it.
podcast or a video game or a movie.
Because you inherently have to repackage an idea in your head
Right.
into something more concrete so that
Yeah.
you can transfer it.
I mean, we
Yeah.
can't.
We don't have
directly-
head-to-head beaming yet.
No mind link yet.
we're not telepathic, so we have to take these concepts in our mind, translate them onto some sort of medium, and send them to the other person, who then has to decode that message and interpret it in their own head. And so along that process, there can be noise or things that can kind of muddy the message. But overall, like the best forms of art, the best communication mediums are ones that are exceptional at communicating ideas with like the least amount of noise possible, essentially.
But also making themselves readily decodable
Yeah.
to the receiver.
So that's like human communication 101 right there. Which, as a side note, the more I've studied communication, at least where I was taught at our university was, it's an offshoot of rhetoric, which is an offshoot of philosophy. So, yeah, sort of a roundabout way into philosophy and theology for me, but that's a topic for another day. But it's kind of cool stuff when you realize just how like art, especially like in communication, really speaks to, I guess, who we are as human persons created by God. So yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts.
Be gone thought.
Hell is hot.
Don't be hell is hot. Don't be a thought.
Yes. That's not the takeaway we want. The main takeaway we want.
That's not the takeaway.
That
we got.
is one takeaway.
Yeah.
That you should always take away. Mm-hmm. But
So yeah, when next time you play a video game, just kind of keep an eye out, or like go ahead and like think a little deeper. Like, okay, so you like a video game. Why do you like it? Is it a video game worth liking? Is it something that's worth your time? And what is it communicating to you? Because sometimes, I mean, this goes both ways. There's truth, goodness, and beauty, but then there's also mockeries of those on the more evil side of things. Well, I mean, it's not really malicious so much as just like messed up,
misunderstood.
twisted, fallen world crap that'll seep in through video games. So you have to, when you're playing video games, you have to sort through that and be like,
The
okay,
Greek word sin means missing the mark.
exactly. So
you put on your big boy pants and you say, "This is good. I will retain it. This is evil. I'm not going to internalize."
What am
Yeah.
I? You have to sometimes you have to ask yourself, what am I willing to put up with today?
yeah,
And sometimes you just have to say, not this.
violence in video games. Do we want to get into that?
Perhaps
today.
another time.
Not today.
Not today.
I mean, you could probably talk about that
Yeah.
Yes, James is our resident expert on being
on violence in video games.
on the way
Our
that
video game sort of sociopath, psychopath. Yeah,
Yes,
I will
yes.
admit to that.
I mean, okay, I will admit I'm the one that buries dogs in Minecraft.
That was my dog. You're lucky I hadn't seen John Wick and it hadn't come out yet at that point. Would have ended your little Minecraft world. I mean, the server no longer exists, so I guess it sort of worked out for that. Anyway, Cool. So, main takeaway, video games, yes, they are art and they have a lot to tell us. So if you're new to video games or you're kind of skeptical about the whole video games or art thing, hopefully this has kind of shed some light on that subject for you.
That's about it.
That's about it.
So thank you for listening. We've been the Palladian Papists. Subscribe, comment, share,
Smash that like button.
do all the internet spreading around things.
Do the thing.
Do the things. It'll help us out. It'd be great. If you have feedback, we'd love to hear it. Just keep it charitable and
Keep your compliments and criticisms charitable and constructive.
and temperate. So thank you guys very much, and we'll see you on the next, or hear you on the.
We won't hear you. You'll be hearing from us.
Oh, you'll hear from us later. You'll hear some of these cool little us later.
So you'll, I guess we'll talk to you guys in the next episode.
They don't get the evil Mickey joke, do they?
Not yet. Forthcoming. We'll explain evil Mickey
We'll
sometime.
do evil Mickey.
I mean, Mickey Mouse is evil. Bye.